So, Professor, I'd like to begin by talking about the family into which you were born. Tell me a little bit about your father, your mother, where you are born, the beginning of your life.
Well, should I start?
Yes.
I was born in Siberia. My grandparents on my father's side moved to Siberia at the beginning of the century. I don't know the circumstances under which they did it. So my father already was born in Siberia.
Ah, also.
My mother moved to Siberia at the age of 17 from Ukrainian city of Zhytomyr, 1 hour before German army entered the city. If she delayed it, I would not have been born. Well, my father was an architect, my mother was a school teacher.
So you're already telling me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you were not born into a scientific family.
No.
In terms of
No, not at all.
background, even their interests?
No.
No. Okay. Prosperous enough? I mean, an architect usually does an okay living, so it was...
Well, people in the Soviet Union at that time, they were as prosperous as their neighbors.
Oh, okay. But that's better than not prosperous,
No,
even by their
not at
neighbor's
all.
standards. So a comfortable,
Yes.
in the context, a
Like
comfortable-
everybody.
Yeah, okay. Now, brothers, sisters?
I had a brother who, well, he had an accident. He died at the age of 15. So
15.
yes, and I had a sister who was essentially older than me.
My. So your place in the family is quite central. I mean, what is your birth order? When did you come? You said the
Well,
brother, when he died at 15, he was an older brother?
Yes, yes. So I was 6 at the time.
You were 6 at the time. This is a trauma.
So
we
the
won't
whole
go into.
family concentrated on me, and
Of
I
course.
wasn't allowed to approach water because he drowned.
Right, they were so worried,
Yes.
having had this experience. Let's begin with your education again at home. Is it a home at least with books, not
Oh
scientific?
yes, there were a
maybe,
lot
but-
of books.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
And were you curious about them?
That was the best thing to stay in bed and to read books.
Because you certainly weren't going to be near water. So
Yeah.
you were in bed reading books. Do you remember a particular favorite book or direction of study, or, I mean, just as a child?
Well, I liked Three Musketeers, Mein Reed, and Jack London, and so on.
So I haven't found the mathematician yet. So you're not reaching for or begging for mathematical...
No.
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 Okay. So now obviously I have to make a mathematician of you, but I have to make it through your education, because it's not happening. Your mother's not saying be a mathematician. Your father's not saying. So let's take you to school. What was the standard of school in your young years and then as it progressed?
Well, as I now remember, I had good teachers. I had a very good teacher in the elementary school, but I credit my teacher in the 6th grade. I was 11 at that time, with 12. With my interest in mathematics, I was very lucky. I had a wonderful teacher. She was extremely supportive, encouraging. She was not a great problem solver herself,
Yes.
but she always encouraged me. And I noticed that I liked to think for a long time about a relatively difficult problem.
Yes, and even at such an age.
Yes, and that's what I was, if I were asked what is mathematical ability, I would say that it's quite close to that. Ability to think for a long time about difficult problems.
The school has a sufficient, the standard of Soviet education at this point in Siberia is what?
Yes.
I mean, you found a good teacher,
Yes.
but and she encouraged you, but you think as you go back that you had a good basic education?
Yes, I think so.
No question.
No question.
There were some advantages to be in the Soviet
Yes.
Union, and that was one. Okay. Well, you were 12 now. Again, I don't know the system. So do they begin at 12 to start sorting out people and say, you go here to this kind of school, you go there to this kind of school?
No, but they started mathematical Olympiads. I participated. I did not like it because you have to work under pressure, you have limited time, problems only of a certain kind, so I didn't like it.
But you did okay.
Yes, my highest achievement was second place in the All-Union Olympiad.
The whole Soviet Union?
Yes, but there were several second places.
No, but still.
Yes,
Not so
but
bad.
I hated it.
Not so bad. But you didn't like the process.
No. But
What
then,
happens when you do well in the Olympiad in the then Soviet Union?
well, what happened? Then you had a chance to go to the International Olympiad. Well, I didn't. At least you know what you are likely to do next. And I want to mention that it's an important moment.
Yes.
That in the Soviet Union, to be a professor of physics or mathematics was absolutely the best possible option. The most prestigious, clean, highly paid job. So the best and the brightest wanted to become mathematicians and physicists. No longer.
No longer, yes. Well, it's become like the rest of the world now.
Yes, it
but not
became
then.
like the rest of the world. But at that time, you know, there were no law, so people didn't want to become lawyers.
So this is not the sort of thing, if your parents discover that you're doing well in it, they'd say, oh my God, my child's life is ruined. They're saying,
No,
he has a chance for
they
the
were
best.
very encouraging and supportive. That was really the best option.
So was it inconvenient to be Jewish in this process of expectation of a career?
At school, no.
No.
Novosibirsk was a big industrial city, and in my school there was no this problem.
Okay.
The first time I encountered it was at the entrance exams to the university.
Tell me about it.
There was a decision on a very high level, probably at the level of Politburo, that children of Jewish origin should not be accepted to top universities.
A formal decision.
I think so, because it was implemented by party committees that had all the power in the country.
So what year is this that you are sitting
I
for
think it
exams?
started in 70s. I had my exams in 72.
Okay, so at the worst time for this.
Yes, yes. But that applied only to Moscow University, Novosibirsk University, probably St. Peter, at that time Leningrad
Leningrad,
University.
yes.
To lesser universities, there they could be accepted.
So it was actually an advantage to be in Siberia. I mean, in this regard.
In Siberia, Novosibirsk University was one of the top universities in the country, so it applied to Novosibirsk University
well.
in full, yes.
But if I'm correct in having read your biography, you did get in.
Not as a student.
Please, tell me this.
No Jew was accepted as a student.
Really? It's so absolute.
No, I was accepted as a candidate to become a student.
Oh.
It was a pure coincidence. I was not supposed to be accepted, but president of the university always left at that time to stay clean. And his deputy knew me by Olympiads, and probably he was in good mood. So he noticed me in this group failed students. He said, so, hi Zelmanov, why are you sad? Why do you look sad? I said, oh, I did not, on my literature composition, I did not reveal the subject. He entered the room, left in 1 minute. In another minute, the secretary of the committee left and said, okay, we give you not F, but say D. And that already meant that I could become a candidate to become a student. And in 1 year, I became a student.
Extraordinary, extraordinary.
I could attend lectures.
And you're still making distinctions. You could attend lectures.
Yes.
Was there anything you could not do? I mean,
No.
once you were
Even
in,
other students in my group did not know that I am not one of them.
and it was good of you not to let them know. Yeah. Okay. So you are in through this miracle.
Yes.
Let's just say.
Yes.
You are in. And you are a young, clever mathematician, potential. How do you make decisions, or are decisions, and again, I'm asking about the system, are decisions made for you in terms of what your education will be, or do you begin to choose directions even at the beginning of the university?
In Novosibirsk there was a very strong algebra school. I started to attend seminar. You know, the process of choosing an advisor is like dating. You go to various seminars, you look at them, you talk to them, they look at you.
And whom did you date? Whom did you wind up dating or choosing?
My advisor was Leonid Bokut, and at later stages him and his advisor Shershov, so I formally had two advisors. I want to say that not everybody would agree to be my advisor. It was highly politically incorrect.
For the same reason?
For the same reason.
Oh.
That problem has always been with me for all the 5 years in my undergraduate and then 3 years in graduate school.
Extraordinary. So, if I may say so, is it just your sheer talent that gets you through these hurdles?
Well, and certain psychological, I would say, stability. After all, Bokut was expelled from the university, in particular for doing such things.
Really? It was so severe a policy.
That was a state policy, and then there were local people who were very happy to implement it.
Yes.
You know, it depends. There were well-known mathematicians who resisted it.
Yes. Yes.
And there were other mathematicians who were very happy to do it.
Yes, enjoyed the fact.
Yes.
Was there already, because so many of the great mathematicians, compared to the number of people we are speaking of, were Jews trained in the Soviet Union. So they saw this as a problem, as a problem, because if you let too many Jews into mathematics or something like this, a high level, they were going to succeed. And this was seen as not a good idea.
There was an element of competition in it.
Okay. So this is one way to eliminate some competition?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, okay. But again, somehow you are more than surviving. You are showing your abilities.
I was lucky.
You were lucky. Yes, yes. And maybe we may even say that continuously through your life, you have found good situations in which to explore your talent.
No complaints.
Yeah, good. But you're getting through, you found your advisor agreed. Now, this was already an algebraic framework?
Yes. There was a strong algebraic school founded by Anatoly Maltsov. He was a very prominent algebraist. And then Shershov was a prominent algebraist. And
so you graduate, I'm just guessing, with honors, or at least a recognition of ability?
Yes. And then I was lucky. I made it to graduate school. In Moscow it would hardly work, but in Siberia it worked.
Well, take us along your education. Now what are you deciding to do? You've graduated from the university?
Yes, I graduated. I went to graduate school. I started
the
to
same
work.
University?
Yes, same university, but that was typical. It's not like in America when students are encouraged to move to a different university.
I see, okay.
Mobility was very small.
And again, you're not running into issues of hostility to your progression.
No. When you work with your colleagues,
you're a person. You're not a category.
Yes. Then, as a graduate student, I chose my problems myself. That is the best thing when graduate students choose problems themselves. Of course, they're influenced by their advisors, by other people, but I believe that the best thing, and when students choose their problems. And if you look at all students of my advisors, they do different things. Because we were free to choose problems.
Yes. So there was some freedom in this.
Oh, yes. I started to work on non-associative algebras because it was a popular subject in Novosibirsk. Well, my advisor worked in a different subject, so I knew kind of both.
Yes.
And that helped.
Yes.
Later, I started to think about problems in group theory. And again, I was so lucky. My previous background turned out to be extremely useful.
Yes, because as I've read about you, you're characterized as surprising the profession later on. And we won't get there yet, but broadly, by achieving something in group theory where you were not associated with group theory.
Yes.
And that's because you had a little bit of a taste of both in university.
Yes. And group theory in general is such a funny subject. The biggest successes were they achieved by people who are not from group theory.
Well, we will pursue this subject when we give you a field medal, but it's something important to talk about again. So, I suppose you needed to do a thesis for your doctorate, was it?
Yes.
And it was in what?
It was in non-associative algebras. And then, by rules of the Soviet Union, I applied to a certain council, and there was a secret vote, and you needed 2/3 to get your PhD.
Yes. Okay.
I did not get 2/3.
Really?
Yes. So the outcome of the vote was negative.
But your luck is going to happen again, I feel. Or not yet?
Yes. First of all, according to the rules of that existed at that time,
Yes.
negative decisions had to be motivated, and there was not a single negative opinion. So I appealed, and appeal is decided by basically the same council, but with open vote. So it was unanimously approved.
But you had a role in your luck in this case, because you didn't passively accept what had happened.
Well, at the day of my unsuccessful defense, I also had wedding party. So, and then, in my generation, it was already a vegetarian time of Brezhnev. And
Yes.
so I took all that with some irony. I even had some pleasure in it. Funny things are happening.
Yeah. But the result was good in the end.
Yes. Again, the committee sent, after open vote, they sent all the documents to Moscow, to Higher Attestation Committee. They did not want to understand.
Yes.
If they don't want to understand, you won't explain
Right,
to them.
of course.
But the director of the institute and the chairman of the council was a very prominent mathematician, Sobolev. All mathematicians know him. At some point, he took on all his 7 orders of Lenin because he was a deputy chair of the Soviet nuclear project, and came to the head of that Moscow committee and said, I am Sobolev, director of the institute. You seem not to understand something in our letter. Maybe I can explain. And he said, okay, we understand.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay, so now at this point I don't have to worry about you. You are now in a position where you can have an influential role in mathematical discourse. Yes?
Oh, PhD? No. PhD is a very small...
That wasn't important?
No.
Not important?
No.
Okay, but you will rise in mathematical company. So what happens next?
Well, then I continued working. I had a pure research position. I was in the Academy of Sciences. I was not allowed to teach.
You don't know.
No. Because maybe I will teach them something wrong. So it was the best possible thing. Now I wouldn't have time. I was on all editorial boards. At that time I couldn't be on editorial boards. I couldn't teach.
For the same
The
reason.
best, absolutely the best situation to do research.
You were left alone.
Yes, so...
And how are you now choosing problems? What is the direction of your intellectual curiosity at this point?
But somehow it happens. I hear many problems, I attend conferences, I listen to talks, and with some problems it starts ticking.
Yes.
I feel that it's close to me. I understand that I could say something there.
Yes. And what is your community? I mean, with whom are you interacting, or are you pretty much isolated?
No, at that time, of course, many years ago, it was people who were close to you. Nowadays, it's, there is
Well, they
Skype.
can be everywhere, yes.
Yes.
But I mean, at this time, until I get you out of the Soviet Union, until we travel outside of the Soviet Union, I'm still interested
Okay,
in
at
the
that
way
time, of
things
course,
work.
first of all, my colleagues in Novosibirsk.
Yes. They're your principal community.
Yes, and then we had strong ties with algebraists in Moscow, in St. Petersburg.
So you expect a career in mathematics?
Yes.
Maybe this direction, maybe you're not allowed to teach, but it's a career.
Yes.
So to jump a bit, but not so much, the 70s were a terrible time.
It's already 80s.
No, I know. I was just referring back to the
Yes.
earlier time, which was difficult, and now the 80s are coming, and the country is breathing in a new way.
Oh, it's 85.
Yes. So it seemed to me odd, just looking at your biography, not knowing the inside thinking, that at the very moment that things look to be getting better, you leave. Why?
No, not at the very moment.
Oh,
Gorbachev came to power in 85.
Right, exactly.
I remember having read his first speech, and I said to my colleagues, "Oh, the new pope is unbeliever."
Yeah.
And then I was suddenly allowed to travel to a conference in Germany.
I wondered about that because some of your colleagues whom I've interviewed could not leave the country.
But 85 for the first time,
Everything changed.
I was allowed to travel to Germany.
Yes.
Well, and then things started to accelerate.
There
I
were
left
new
for the
possibilities.
first time. I went to United States in 89.
On a academic invitation.
Yes, and I visited in that fall. I mostly went to Yale University
Yes.
at the invitation of Professor Jacobson, who was kind of my mentor in US.
Ah.
I was educated on his books, and then
Yes.
in general, when I came to United States and met all these people whom I never met, the impression was that we knew each other forever.
Yes.
We spoke the same language.
Yes,
It's
wonderful.
just
Is there, again, other colleagues of yours who had a kind of similar origin have had different views, as human beings will, about the quality of the mathematical system, education that they had left in the Soviet Union and that they began to encounter here. And for all of the disadvantages of the Soviet system, the quality of mathematical inquiry was extremely high.
that's true.
Were you at all disappointed, exhilarated probably by being in the world now and being able to talk with these colleagues you have read and known? But are you beginning to evaluate the different mathematical teaching systems, and are you pleased with what you're finding in the United States?
The top American universities are already also at the extremely high level. I would not say that one system is better than the other.
Ah, okay,
It's extremely high level. The system is different.
right. And maybe at the lower levels of education,
Level of education, I would say that in US it's slightly still higher,
Ah.
the lower level.
oh, okay.
Because American
Okay, yeah.
mathematics is bigger.
Yes, yes. Okay, so you are in the world now.
Yes.
You can travel, the conferences, you can see the people you have read your whole life, and on
Yes.
and on. What are the decisions now before you in terms of where you invest your intellectual energy, where you live your life? How were you thinking about
It was a very difficult decision, very difficult time. When I first came to the US in '89, I visited 15 universities, looked around. It was really a new world. And I had, in a way, old Soviet thinking.
Yes, of course. You were not an old Soviet, but you were a Soviet.
You know, my colleague later, Walter Feit at Yale University, he asked me if I like Yale, if I would like to join at some point. And I looked at him, I didn't say anything. But I thought, can you count how many Jews are already at your department? You want another one?
Really? This was
what
your
would
first
people
thought?
say? Yes.
This was your first thought.
And he didn't occur to him at all to count.
Yes, and that was you knew you were in a new place,
Yes, yes.
and that was not a bad thing to think.
Oh,
It was
yes.
a reason to come.
Yes, and I had a very good nose for these things.
Yes.
I smell it. And nobody was interested in my ethnic background. It just was a non-existent subject.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I begin to see the new American emerging. You accept a position where?
First in Madison, Wisconsin. A wonderful place. When I came there to give a talk and they asked me if you want tenure here, I asked maybe I want. Could you please explain what is it?
Of course, you have to learn from the basic.
They explained, and still,
they offered you tenure. They offered you tenure.
Yes, I felt strong kind of links, attachments to Novosibirsk mathematics, and our initial agreement was that I would spend one semester in Madison, one back. Then I traveled more, and I understood that it's a non-working decision. When you have children, you cannot stand with one leg on one continent, with another leg on another continent.
Let's talk about your family at the
Children should grow either Americans or Russians.
Right, right.
And then I went to Max Planck Institute in Germany and got an email from the chairman in Wisconsin. He wrote, can we have a telephone conversation? I have a question. I wrote to him, I also have a question, but let us, okay. So he called and asked, can we make it that it is a full-time appointment, but I promise you that whenever you want to take a leave without pay, you get it. I said, okay. I said, what's your question? I said, my question disappeared.
It was the perfect situation for you.
Yes.
Now I want to bring your wife into our conversation because you're affecting everything, not just your professional direction and colleagues, you're affecting your family, as you were saying, your children, your wife. What is she thinking about this?
Oh, she was very supportive. She wanted to emigrate even before I did.
So there was no problem of leaving the broader family?
Well, I had parents, and of course I hoped to move them to the United States. It did not work out that way.
So they remained there?
Yes. Well, my mother died soon after that, and it didn't work out that way.
Yeah. But you have made the decision, your family is happy with this decision.
Oh, yes.
And so you go to Wisconsin.
That was decision for children, too.
Yes, I understand. Characterize the Wisconsin mathematics department.
Wonderful place.
Yes.
Through all my history in my life in Siberia, I grew up with a feeling, and in Moscow it was the same, that all administrators are our class enemies.
Anyway, yes.
It is normal for them to plot against us. We have to resist. That's how it is.
Right.
And in Wisconsin, I felt, for some reason, they like me.
Hard to believe, but
yes.
It happened. They like you and they support you.
Well, yes. They are not class enemies.
But is the department, just in informal terms, going in a particular direction with its mathematical faculty, or is it...
I had wonderful collaboration with my colleagues, Georgia Benkart, Marshall Osborne, the algebraists from Wisconsin. We had joint papers, and on the personal level, it was wonderful.
And but there was a community of algebraists.
Yes.
I mean, it wasn't, you were not the one. You were not
No,
representing
no.
the field. You have colleagues.
Yes, I had colleagues.
Okay.
And
You're free, probably, as you were as a researcher with no future in the Soviet Union. Now you're free because of the conditions of the faculty. You have tenure. You can follow whatever
Absolutely.
interests you.
yes, but in mathematical world, people usually are free to choose their own way, to work on problems.
It's the normal.
It's a normal
situation.
thing.
Okay, so tell me about the kind of problems you are setting before yourself. I'm a layman. I won't understand the intricacies of it, but just the direction of your
But
curiosity.
even before, my approach to algebra was quite wide, broad. It involved group theory. I had collaboration with my colleagues from Jerusalem,
Yeah.
from Oxford, Lee algebras,
Yes,
Wisconsin. So these are still problems in algebra, but in the broad algebra.
Right. In my growing, if still small, knowledge of the mathematical field, I know that one of the things that particularly challenges mathematicians in general is to tackle old problems
Yes.
and to, best case, solve what had seemed unsolvable. I think you were beginning to show this kind of ability.
Though there is some elements of sports there.
Okay. Well, you can describe it as sports, but tell me
Well, you know,
about the game.
Okay. In the Soviet Union, there was a particular problem, also because of my special situation.
Yes.
I needed to justify what I did, because there always would be people who would be very willing to say, oh, that's not important.
Right.
When you solve an old problem,
Everybody
it's much easier to justify.
They accept the importance
Yes,
of it.
yes. But then there is a question. Here is this old problem, and very clever people worked on it. Why should I solve it?
Yes, yes.
What do I know that they did not know?
Yes, exactly.
And you have to answer yourself this question. I thought that I perfectly realized that my approach is absolutely different from everything that was tried before. The more it took, I came to the conclusion that it really has a chance. You know, like a chess player looks at the board. He can say which side has winning position,
Yes.
even if he does not see any particular way to win.
I got it.
So, looking at the board, I saw a winning position.
Yes. Is this in the Jordan context?
Yes, Lie algebras and Jordan algebras,
Yes.
group theory. I thought that it would be impossible not to win it. But then it took a lot of efforts.
Yes, of course.
Still.
And now I'm asking, in a way, about the habits of a mathematician who takes on this kind of problem. You just keep hitting the wall until finally it breaks?
In a way, yes, yes. Gelfand used, Gelfand, you know who is Gelfand, used to say that a mathematician has to have a bad memory and not to remember constant failures. Because 99.9% of times, as you say, you hit the wall and that's it. But you have to try again and again. At some point, you don't need paper any longer.
Yeah.
Again, as a chess player, who
Yes.
you see the board.
Yeah.
So you can think non-stop.
And you had no capacity for despair.
It happens. At some point, I felt that either I will do this problem or this problem will do me.
Yes. Yes. And we're sitting here in part because you did the problem. You succeeded.
Well, when I finally put the last dot, and
Yes.
understood. I did not feel any joy, whatever, just enormous fatigue.
Yes.
I was exhausted.
Of course, of course. Because it was such a classic problem, an important one, news of this travels fast, and the profession begins to notice this interesting fellow in Madison.
He's still in Novosibirsk.
Still there.
Still.
Ah. Well, then Madison. What is happening in Madison?
Well, I continued working.
On the same broad category?
Broad category in Lie algebra, in medicine mostly on Lie algebras.
Yeah. So, how do I get you out of Madison? Because you won't spend the
Well,
rest
I
of your
always
career there.
was a member of a broader Yale family.
Okay.
But at that time, the next after medicine was Chicago. University of Chicago has such strong traditions in algebra.
Yes.
You know, classics in algebra worked there. So for me, it was very flattering that they made an offer. I spent 1 year in Chicago. The university was wonderful. After medicine, I did not particularly liked the area.
Yeah. To live in.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know how it would go further, but then Yale made an offer and I couldn't say no. In particular, I couldn't say no to Jacobson.
Yes.
It was...
And because you had started, which is a miracle in academia, with tenure here, you had tenure everywhere. When you made
Yes,
decisions,
yes.
you brought your tenure with you.
Yes.
So in that sense, it was not risky.
No,
You
no.
could stay as long as you wanted.
Yes.
Again, by going to Yale, is there a moment in your own development as a mathematician that particularly happened there?
It was a wonderful department. Again, the department consisted of classics and mathematics, and there was a unique atmosphere.
Please,
At
can
the
you describe it a
department.
little bit? What is unique
Oh,
about it?
well, they were all close friends since their young years. There were a lot of parties. Kind of the department was extremely friendly.
Mm-hmm.
They all supported each other. All that generation, most of Jacobson, Veit, Seligman, Kakutani, Tamagawa, very multi-ethnic.
Yes. Is it at Yale that you begin to explore in group theory?
No, even in Novosibirsk. I more or less I explored everything.
Yeah.
At Yale, I tried some other directions. You know, when you say Lie algebras, it's the whole world. So I started to explore new things, and in group theory is the whole world. And the whole mathematics is, you can put the whole mathematics there.
So I'm going to dwell with you still within group theory because that's going to get you a field medal.
When I got Fields Medal, I got first information was when I was still in Wisconsin.
Ah, still. Yeah. So you are now what age? Because I know you're under 40.
38.
You're 38.
Yes.
Okay.
I did not get a formal invitation. Apparently it was formal information from the IMU. Apparently it was sent to a wrong address. I got a congratulation from Walter Veit, who was supposed, when you get Fields Medal, somebody talks about your work.
Yes.
So Walter Veit talked about my work. I got congratulations.
But tell me a little bit again. I won't understand all, but the core insight that got you the Fields Medal.
It was a series of works in non-associative algebras that smoothly turned into group theory and the Burnside problem.
Can you again characterize it?
The Burnside problem, I will have to say what's a group. A group is one of the most fundamental concepts in mathematics.
Okay.
As I always say that if you have to go to a deserted island in the middle of the ocean and you are allowed to take only 3 mathematical concepts with you,
Yes.
think about a group. It's one of the foundational concepts for the whole mathematics. And infinite groups attracted interests at the beginning of the 20th century, and Burnside, a professor in Cambridge, asked what makes a group finite. If every element is periodic, is it enough to make a group finite? And this problem motivated a lot of infinite group theory throughout the 20th century.
Yes.
In a way, in group theory, it was like a Fermat problem. The Fermat problem itself is not so important, maybe, but it was a motivation.
Yes.
And a lot of very important mathematics appeared in this way. So that was also a motivation in infinite groups. In 60s, some counterexamples were constructed, but I did the positive part of the problem. The so-called restricted Burnside problem. It turned out to be related more to theory of algebras, Lie algebras, and non-associative algebras.
Which you were well grounded in.
Yes.
Yes. Yale dominates your life, but you decide to leave.
For some reason, midlife crisis. A lot of people ask me why. I can say that if Jacobson were alive, I wouldn't, because I wouldn't, even as most of told me, what would Jake say?
Yeah.
Said he would say nothing, because I wouldn't even mention. You have mentor in your life.
Yes, no, of course.
You would.
And you did have the benefit of that. It wasn't
yes.
You actually had the relationship.
Yes, about him, and remember his wife, Flori. She was also a mathematician, and she was an important member of Yale family. She was so clever on a human level.
Yes, yes, yes. But they are no longer available to you.
They're no longer available, yeah.
So you begin to dream of California?
I didn't dream. I didn't dream. But at midlife crisis, I wanted some change. And then I visit, of course I've been to California, I had offers from California, but I was not tempted.
Yes.
And then I visited San Diego and looked around. I did not even know that I was invited, that it was kind of an interview, just a colloquium.
Yeah.
And then I thought I could live here.
You're not the first.
No.
So, in San Diego, I'm going to begin to talk to the teacher that you are. Because again, in my experience with mathematicians more and more, some like to teach, some don't like to teach. This is back to this whole question of isolation or direct inspiration. And so in your personality as an intellectual, how important did teaching become? Because in San Diego, you've been doing...
In Yale, at Yale also in Wisconsin, Chicago, everywhere.
Okay, tell me what kind of teacher you are, what interests you in the process. What is the process of being a... You just find clever students and have what happened to you? You just let them do whatever they want, or?
It's an enormous joy, to teach to interested students, because we all do some mathematics, and here you have a chance to talk about the most classical mathematics in the world. What's more classical than Newton's theory of calculus?
Right.
The greatest mathematics ever, in a way as though you invented it yesterday.
Yeah. For me as a historian, I've mentioned this to others, we live so much in sequence. Of course, we are involved with the study of the past. That's different. That's something separate. But what I mean more that strikes me about mathematicians is that your colleagues never leave you. That is to say, they could be 400 years that they were talking.
Yes.
But you are living still in the same world.
That's
Whereas
true.
historians leave their colleagues behind, and then they say, well, this is the new idea, this is so forth. But they don't have inquiries, the colleagues, hundreds. But it seems the joy of mathematics is your colleagues are always there with you.
My colleagues who are on the different continent.
Also in space, yes.
Yes.
It seems to me one of the charms of this field.
Yes.
Do you discover, without saying this is my favorite student or not, some very interesting minds among your students?
Of course, I was fortunate to teach some very strong students. I remember once I gave a course at Yale, Larry Goose was in that course. And, that was a course for one student. Because I had to be very careful with my proofs, because there is somebody who immediately understands them better than I do. And I remember Pavel Etchingov came to Yale, as he's now a full professor. They both are at the MIT. As a graduate student, and the course changed. So there was somebody who could immediately offer a better proof than what I do.
Which, because I think you're a little confident in your own abilities, is an excitement, not a disappointment.
No, it's a great excitement. There is somebody to talk to.
Yes.
Or Daniel Spillman, he was an undergraduate at that course. He is now winner of Nevanlinna Prize.
Yes.
You teach very strong people.
Yeah, it's the best case.
Oh, yes.
So
and some of my graduate students, they were absolutely independent. That's how I was taught.
Yes.
So when I see a student, a strong mathematician, they're usually very independent.
Yes.
I remember Martin Kasabov was my student at Yale. I could not influence him in any way when I tried, because he has such an independent mind. He will do everything differently.
Yes. So we finish with a question maybe without an answer, because when I speak to computer theorists and I ask them, speaking to young students, where would you suggest that they go? What are the now principal interesting problems out there? In mathematics, I know it's different, but talking to a young mathematician, is there a place where the field seems particularly exciting now?
You have to show many problems to young mathematicians and to encourage them to go to seminars. Now they get problems from internet, they read papers. Ultimately, if it is a really strong mathematician, he will make his own mind. Nobody told me to work on problems that I worked on.
Thank you very much. That's the last word.
Thank you.